This Yuletide Miniseries is a replay of episodes originally published in 2024. This way, the episodes are conveniently queued up in your podcast player so you don't have to go searching for them, and you never lose your spot in the listening order. As always, we're celebrating Yuletide in real time in the Numinous Network. I hope you'll join us for daily altar time from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific, starting December 21st, winter solstice, and going through till New Year on January 1st. We're gathering on Zoom to check in, light our candles, and do a 20-minute guided trance journey to connect with the Yuletide theme of the day. So join us in the Numinous Network for Yuletide. Sign up at carmenspaniola.com. Welcome back to The Spirit of Yuletide, a Numinous podcast mini-series where we explore the European folk magic traditions of the winter season. I'm your host, Carmen Spaniola, and this is part 7. In this episode, we're observing the first night of Yuletide, December 21st, the winter solstice, in some traditions known as Mother's Night. Tonight, we honor mothers, matrilineage, and nurturance, because everything begins with the mother. This is the night of acknowledging the line of women that gave us life, specifically the ones whose names we can remember. So tonight, to the extent that we can, we name the mothers who came before us and gave us life. And if that's a celebratory notion for you, that's wonderful. That's exactly what we're going for. And anything you do to honor the mothers and the supportive women in your life is perfect for tonight. And I would say, yes, there's historically a strong emphasis on the bloodlines, but I would say the milk lines too. So those women who are not necessarily related by blood and bone, but by presence and spirit. They nurtured you like a mother somehow. Now, if this is a difficult prospect for you, you can instead acknowledge an archetype of nurturance, an archetype of abundance and provisioning, such as Mother Mary, Bridget, Isis, Gaia, Juno, Demeter, Caradwen, or Frigg, really any mother goddess of hearth and home. Sunna, the life-giving goddess of Norse mythology, might be a good goddess to introduce to your pantheon at winter solstice if she isn't already present. Tonight, we want to invoke our matrilineage and lineages of women who somehow contributed to the continuance of spiritual lineages and to the welfare of the collective. In Northern European traditions, female ancestors, as well as domestic deities, are considered to perform a very important medical role in the family lineage as well. They are the healers who carry the gifts of knowing how to work with the plants, the food, the body, especially around birth, death, and fertility, and issues concerning the health of infants and children and livestock. Their medical function also included the collective body of the community. They were community witches and healers and midwives. We'd also turn to wise women for prophecy, divination, and omen interpretation, especially in the winter time of the year when we had really long nights inside with our families and our thoughts. Or on winter solstice, you can also do what the old Romans and some Siberian cultures do, and honor the constellation we call Ursa Major, which is a larger constellation that contains the Big Dipper. Because this constellation rotates above the horizon, it was interpreted as sometimes appearing on all fours and other times standing on two legs. Bears were seen in Finland as siblings or cousins to humans, like a shapeshifter often appearing in human form. So you could honor the great mother bear who protects, nurtures, and bonds with her young. Some of the worshipped women on this night we can place in the category of good women who roam the night. So these benevolent female figures lead the wild hunt but they're bestowing blessings as they go rather than stealing souls. We'll delve more deeply into the more creepy lore of the furious army of the Wild Hunt on December 23rd. But here on Mother's Night, we highlight the traditions that specifically honor the fabled gentlewomen. In various periods and places, such as Italy, France, Spain, Germany, and Britain, this is the night when you'd find some version of a lady of abundance who would visit the homes of those who had left offerings out. She goes by many names, for instance, La Dame Abonde. This was the French goddess of the Middle Ages who bestowed blessings upon the poor. In some places, she's known as Richella or Dame Fortuna, Satya or Abundia. And then there are the sweeter versions of Perkta, Frauhola, and Hulda, who are very similar. So if your home had an orderly kitchen, the Lady of Abundance would also answer your prayers and offer spiritual assistance and protection for the next year. Or you could invoke Diana. Now this Diana, in this tradition, it's not the same as the ancient Roman Diana, though there are some associations with forest and fauna. But no, this Diana is a version of the Celtic tradition of Dianu, which is shortened to Anu. Now, one of the roles connected to matrilineages and the deities that we would celebrate on winter solstice, one of their roles was related to omens and beginnings, because women and mothers and matrilineages have long been connected to prophecy, as I said. So whatever happened on this day throughout December 21st, that whole day, that would give us clues as to what would come in the year ahead. So offerings would be left out, and everyone would be very watchful for every little happening on this day, hoping that at the end of the day, there were more positive happenings than negative ones. And definitely everybody would be watching the weather, with different times of day and night corresponding to different months of the year. And so it would be the custom to consult with the matriarch of the family at the end of the day and ask for help interpreting the omens. In Scottish and Irish traditions, this is the night to honor the Cailleach. Now, the Cailleach, she's the old crone, sometimes called the old woman of winter, and she creates and protects the land and its animals, particularly the deer. Now, the Cailleach is a kind of a no-nonsense type of granny, but her heart is as loving as it is fierce if you catch her in the right story, especially if you happen to be a deer or a glen or a mountain that's special to her. Her love would then know no bounds. She punishes the callous and immoral hunters with blinding blizzards and losing their trail in sudden darkness, and she rewards skillful and compassionate hunters with prime game and easy weather. And then, of course, there are the Celtic banshees that might also travel this night foretelling death. In Scandinavia, tonight is the night of celebrating Alfablot, the feast sacrificing to the elves. There are the Deezer, a fairly ominous lot who fly through the air, deciding the destinies of whoever crossed their path. So there's definitely the shadow aspect of the solstice as well. It still is very much the longest night of the year. Other more witchy-type figures honored now include Mother Berchta and Frau Holla, who were popular from Switzerland to Scandinavia, and then down to Italy's La Befana. And there's so much overlap between goddesses known as Berchta, Bertha, Perkta, Perkt, Holla, Hulda, Hulda, Hel, Many scholars just consider them to be local variants of the same spiritual figure. And like the Cailleach, this goddess is associated with the wild deer and the nightly traveling dead who are active from like Halloween, or what in Gaelic or Gaelic is called Samhain, all the way till solstice. with, of course, again, regional variations. Now, Frau Berchta's gig was hopping wildly around the village wearing animal hides and a hideous wooden mask. And she would ask about children's behavior, and instead of giving gifts, she demanded them. Though in earlier versions of her stories, she is named Bertha and was a queen who eschewed the riches of palace living, and instead Queen Bertha traveled on a fine steed carrying a spindle, which again, spindles would often be connected with prophecy. We see that all the way through, other folk tales and fables like Sleeping Beauty, right? She would wear humble clothes and check in on the livestock and well-being of the householders throughout the land. On Christmas Eve, she rises from underground with a basket of grain, which she sows as she walks, accompanied by an entourage of elves and dwarves and gnomes and kobolds. In Germanic Alpine traditions, we also find the Barbeltrebens, where unmarried women as young as 16 years old dress up like old crones in ragged clothing and headscarves. They wear wooden masks covered in lichen and moss. They have big cowbells attached to their aprons, and they carry brooms made of birch or willow, and they will come into your house and sweep out anything indecent for you. But if they see any men out in the streets, they will beat them with their brooms and send them back home to their families. The Barbeltrebens tradition is said to honor Saint Barbara, patron saint of children, who was tortured by her pagan father when she converted to Christianity. But let's back up, friends, because actually, if we go back further, we find that Saint Barbara is the Christianized version of an earlier goddess named Barbala. Barbala was the protector of children and was also a sun goddess who helped return the world to light by carrying the sun back on the antlers of a deer. So Barbara is the dear mother of winter, the solar goddess, the bringer of light and hence clarity. So that brings us back to the association with prophecy. And of course, the deer with solstice and Christmas and all of that. Ho, 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 paganism is everywhere. Okay, back at it. So in Switzerland and Bavaria, Frau Holle is the goddess of heaven and earth, who brought winter by shaking out a goose-down duvet, whose feathers become snow, blanketing the land. Now, Frau Holle is more of a semi-benevolent woman after my own heart. Semi-benevolent, whatever that means. Well, I guess what it means is Frau Holle was the ultimate judge of good and bad, of life and death, and she would come and judge you. So if you were caught traveling at night, you would have to answer to her. In this area, instead of like the 6 weeks from Samhain to solstice of the roaming of the furious army of the night kind of thing, they just had a mere 12 days called the rough nights, during which the demons had these nightly processions, and the Frau Holle, was at the head of it. So, woe upon you if you hadn't completed your work for the year, especially, they say, especially laundry. Woe upon you if you didn't have an orderly household or if you were considered lazy. Because, once again, we see the patriarchy controlling and restricting women through endless domestic labor. Okay, over to Italy, to Sicily, where we return to La Befana, the dear old Christmas witch, favorite of children all over. Hopefully more and more of La Befana in the future, right? We love her. In the earliest stories about her, La Befana was called Pasqua Epifania, and she would travel from house to house, placing candies and gifts in the stockings of good children, and then she would put birch or coal in the stockings of bad ones. Now, that was before her home place of Bari, Italy, was Christianized, and the relics of St. Nicholas were moved there in the 11th century, effectively supplanting her. Boo. Now, a common motif with the Yuletide witch traditions is the broom. So the sweeping of the house from top to bottom, not only to like clear the dirt, but also the old energy of the past year, and also any evil spirits that were lingering in the house. That's like a key ritual for today. So a decorated broom or a besom beside the altar is a really lovely nod to the Yuletide witch tradition. And I have to admit, while I am definitely one to smash patriarchal gender norms and gender division of labor, I do have to admit that I love me a good rage clean. I love a good rage clean, my friend. It's ironic, yes, but very often my rage at the patriarchy is carried out in like a rammy-jammy clean of my house and like getting rid of things that weigh me down. I love a good purge. I'm like Marie Kondo, but angry. Angry and well-organized, which is a potent form of feminism. So traditional rituals for this day could include just like sweeping your house from top to bottom, giving things a good mop, giving things away, donating unwanted goods, finishing up repairs and mending, putting fresh linens on the bed, making sure the larder's full. You know, you want to be ready for a season of resting and festing, feasting and releasing. Now, another tradition that may for some be a much more enjoyable chore is to cook and bake the favorite foods of your female ancestors. So instead of cleaning the kitchen, you make a mess in the kitchen and get someone else to clean it. In parts of Switzerland and other regions of like Alpine Europe, it was traditional to leave out what they called white alms at this time of year. So literally food colored white. So white bread, small glasses of milk, water, cream, white wine. So it was white foods and drinks and clear drinks, partly because the color white symbolizes purity and therefore some notion of motherhood, but also practically speaking, because it's winter, like there aren't a lot of leafy greens and tomatoes around, you know what I mean? So you had cheese, you had bread, maybe you had milk or cream, but you were rationing your foods, trying to eat the delicate things before they spoiled. So tonight, white alms would be left out for the good souls of the dead to come in and get warm in hopes they might stay and hear your prayers and give you assistance. Now, if you're a knitter or weaver or somehow a fiber or fabric artist, this is a really good night to replenish spindles and like roll your yarns up, or you could leave beautiful fabrics out overnight. When Frau Holle sees this, she will offer you blessings and say for every thread there will be another good year. Naturally, of course, photos of the mothers of your bloodline, they are treasured now on the altar, as well as like their jewelry or favorite flowers, images of them. These can all be added to the altar. Or if, like my grandmother, your matrilineal ancestors enjoyed a stiff drink, a little rum and coke, and a swing around the dance floor, then tonight we dance and cheers, right? So whatever was up for your grandmothers, this is the night where you elevate it to sacred status. In some traditions, this is the night when women would wassail together, going from house to house, singing songs and asking for ale and cakes. This is totally, my grandma was around in the ancient times. She would have been a hardcore wassailer. So winter solstice is a great night to connect with your gal pals. Of course, the solstice is also for silence. The word solstice means sun stands still, signifying the appearance of the sun rising and setting from the same position on the southeasterly horizon for 3 days in a row. Ancient people around the world recognized the sacredness of this time, and they built monuments to mark the moment, including Stonehenge in England and Newgrange in Ireland, Gosset's Circle in Germany, the Temple of Karnak in Egypt, and the Hopewell and Marietta earthworks in Ohio. Remember that Yuletide is almost a form of epagamental days. Epagamental days, meaning like a period of time added to the calendar year that doesn't belong to the year that's ended, nor does it belong to the one about to begin. It's kind of, imagine it as like an intertidal zone between years. And that intertidal zone is its own ecosystem teeming with life. So in this cycle of 12 days, beginning now at the solstice, the other world is more accessible and makes itself more visible if we can just keep still for a moment. So taking a few moments of silence would be a lovely ritual for today. So just to recap, some altar and ritual suggestions for today: family photos of the mothers and supportive women. Those could go on the altar along with jewelry or artifacts or symbols of their work or their handicrafts, their accomplishments, any figurines that depict mother and child, or imagery of maternal provisioning and sustenance and care. Animal symbols like bear, doe, deer, dove, any animal that you find protective and nurturing. And then any plants that you connect with maternal love and care, things like rose, rosehip, lily, or any other flower or herb. Ritual and craft suggestions for today. This is a great time to find and decorate a Yule log. Again, if you don't have a fireplace, just put some candles in there. You can drill holes, or I've seen even people use glue guns, all kinds of cool things. You could go to Instagram and check out hashtag Spirit of Yuletide or Yuletide Stocking Stuffer. That'll bring up past years that we've done this and use different hashtags. So we've used, hashtag Yuletide Stocking Stuffer and hashtag Spirit of Yuletide, and you'll see people's Yule logs, which is very cool, and other things for other nights of Yule. This is a great night to play the music that your ancestors loved, light a candle, bake an heirloom recipe. Of course, it's winter solstice, so if you can have a solstice bonfire, awesome. You could put a burn bundle that contains your hopes and wishes for the coming year, or even just for the next, the light half of the year. This burn bundle might contain slips of paper with healing phrases or medicinal herbs and plants, and they're tied to a bundle of sticks gathered from the ground under a tree or trees that are sacred to you. This is a ritual that we've done in the Numinous Network, and the recording is available if you'd like more information. But of course, you'll also find it in my book, The Spirited Kitchen, Recipes and Rituals for the Wheel of the Year. You can also just burn a list of everything you're ready to leave behind in the year that's passed. Or alternatively, you could light a candle and recite out loud everything you're not taking with you into the next year, everything you're ready to let go of. And when you are finished, blow out the candle and let that smoke cleanse all those things you're not going to take with you into the year ahead. You could also sprinkle salt onto your floor to absorb all the heavy energies from the past year, and then give your whole house a good sweep. Or if you don't want to use salt, you could, especially if you have carpets, you could use baking soda and then vacuum everything up. And that'll be a nice way to cleanse all of the heavy energies and release this past year. Also, today's a great day to donate goods that you no longer use, to go grocery shopping, fill your larder with food, put fresh linens on the bed, that sort of thing. Also a great night to gather with women or just participate in the favorite activities of your female ancestors. And finally, again, sitting in silence for a moment to just be in the liminal space of the longest night of the year. That's all for this episode. I look forward to sharing more Yuletide traditions with you in the next. Good Yule to you, and until next time, take care.